Hello and welcome to Nothing But the Truth. As the Congress Party prepares for the budget session of Parliament starting on Monday, there are serious questions it faces, but is it ready to address them? That's the key issue I shall explore today with one of the party's most senior leaders, former Cabinet Minister and the pro tem Speaker of this Parliament, Kamal Nath. Mr. Kamal Nath, let's start with Digvijay Singh's comment that by temperament Rahul Gandhi doesn't seek power but wants to fight injustice. Many people believe that's actually an accurate assessment. Do you agree with it?
Well, he's not seeking power. It's not that he's hungry for power. We must understand that politics is a means to an end, and it's not the end itself. So, I think it's very accurate to say that Mr. Rahul Gandhi is not hungry for power.
But you know, when you say politics is a means to an end, that end is only achieved by seeking power. Now, if Rahul Gandhi is not interested in seeking power, then what is he doing as Vice President of the Congress Party? What is he going to do when he becomes President of the party? Because the party wants to come to power to achieve its ends, and yet he's not interested in power. That makes him a misfit.
I'm not saying he's not interested. I'm saying that he's not in the politics being the pursuit of power alone. And he's not in the pursuit of power. He's not hungry for power. So some people are in politics. I'd say most people are in politics because they are hungry for power.
Can I put it like this? Politics is not the pursuit of power alone,
Absolutely.
But it has to be primarily in the first instance the pursuit of power. Otherwise, none of the other things you want to do can ever happen. Now, if you turn around and say, I'm not interested in power, that means you can't put yourself in a position to fulfill either your agenda or your ambitions or your dreams. So what's the use of being leader of a political party?
No, I don't agree with that at all, that politics is also the pursuit of power. Politics can be to fight injustice. Politics can be to...
Then be an NGO. NGOs fight injustice from outside the system.
That's one way. That's one way. But that's not the only way. Politics is also a means of fighting, taking on injustice, distributive justice.
You take on injustice, you take on the problems of distribution by coming into power.
Yeah.
You don't do it from outside. Now, if you're not interested in power,
it's by raising your voice. It's not necessarily only by being in power.
Raising your voice outside Parliament is simply to be a journalist. It's inside Parliament when you raise your voice that you have power to act.
Absolutely. So,
but he doesn't want to seem to do that.
No, he is in Parliament.
Well, you know, you say he's in Parliament and no one can deny it in a technical sense, but he doesn't function very effectively inside Parliament. In fact, your own partymen agree totally with what Digvijay Singh has said. In private, they express themselves more strongly. It's just that in public, because Rahul Gandhi's party leader, no one can say that he's ineffective. And he's ineffective because he seems to lack that killer instinct.
I must say that what I say in private, I say in public, and what I say in public, I say in private. And I must make it clear that Rahul Gandhi has always maintained from day one, that my politics is not the politics of pursuit of power. And I think that brings a new tone, a new dimension to looking at politics.
It does. It brings the tone and dimension of an NGO.
No.
What it does is to defeat the purpose of being a politician.
No. If he was not a politician, he would not contest elections. If he was not a politician, he would not be vice president of the party. But being that...
He is a very reluctant MP and a very reluctant vice president of the party, and that's one reason why people feel he's not cut out to be leader of the party.
No, I don't think so at all. He's not a reluctant vice president and he's not a reluctant member of parliament at all.
Digvijay Singh went one step further. He also said, and I'm going to quote him, Rahul Gandhi should have been up to the responsibility of leading Congress in the Lok Sabha. In other words, he should have accepted the role of leader of the Lok Sabha, not give it to Mallikarjun Kharge. Do you believe he made a mistake by not stepping up to the plate?
No, I don't think so, because Rahul Gandhi, it depends how you apportion your time. Now, if his time is going to be in organization...
At the moment, he spends a lot of his time outside the country holidaying.
No, that's not correct at all. I think that's a very unfair statement. He didn't even have time
to attend the dinner his mother gave for the Prime Minister.
That's a very unfair statement, that he spends all his time...
It's the truth.
No, it's not the truth at all that he spends most of his time out of the country.
Quite a fair amount of his time.
No, not even a fair amount. If somebody is out for 7 days in a year, and then you say that's a fair amount of time.
7 days in the year when the mother is hosting a dinner for the outgoing Prime Minister?
His program may have been made before, and the dinner program may have come later. So that doesn't mean that he spends all his time abroad.
So his program is more important than a courtesy to the Prime Minister?
No, I don't think it was a discourtesy. The Prime Minister himself, he had spoken to the Prime Minister, as the Prime Minister himself said and as Rahul Gandhi himself said. But let me make this very clear, that being the Vice President of the party takes a substantial amount of his time. And now if he's got to apportion his time between leader of the opposition and this, you got to decide.
He can't do two jobs. He can't do two jobs together at the same time.
You have seen that you have a president of a party. Rajnath Singh was the president of the party in the BJP. And Sushma Swaraj was the leader of the opposition. Now tell me why.
Rajiv Gandhi, his father, managed to be both Prime Minister and President of the party. He did two jobs, the son can't.
Forget that. 4 months ago, in all political parties, you have a leader on the floor, you have a leader of the opposition. Why was Sushma Swaraj the leader of the opposition and not Rajnath Singh?
Let me put it like this. Do you know the net result that follows because Rahul Gandhi did refuse to take up the job of leader of the Lok Sabha in Parliament? You've ended up with Mallikarjun Kharge, a second-term MP. That's it, a second-term MP. Unknown outside Karnataka. He is now your leader. And you know what people say? Clearly, Congress hasn't put its best foot forward in Parliament. That's undeniable.
No, I don't think that's true, Mr.
Kharge would have been better than Rahul Gandhi.
Is a very experienced political being.
A second-term MP is very experienced.
How many terms has he been an MLA?
9.
Then,
but he was unknown outside Karnataka and he got passed over for the chief ministership. He got passed over for the chief ministership.
That's what you are saying. That's not a fact. He was very happy.
He didn't get the job. That's the fact.
Well, a chief minister's job is given on various considerations. Not that because you happen to be so and so and you be 9 times
The
MLA.
critical point I'm making is this. Because Rahul Gandhi wouldn't take up the job of leader of Congress in the Lok Sabha, you haven't put your best foot forward. That is a handicap for the party.
I think again that's being very unfair to Mr. Kharge. You've not even seen him perform. Parliament is starting on Monday. And you have said that it's not your best foot. How do you know it's not your best foot?
Are you saying to me that Kharge will end up being better than Rahul Gandhi?
Certainly.
Certainly,
if in his job as the leader of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi is not the leader of the opposition.
Right. Quite right. Rahul Gandhi didn't want to be leader of the opposition, and people say by not taking up the challenge, Rahul Gandhi has indicated that he's not cut out to face up to challenges.
No, absolutely not. We've been into this just now, that Rahul Gandhi is organizationally running the party. The parliament has to have a leader of the opposition. It is not necessarily that one should have both the jobs. It has never been so. It has never been so.
If Rahul Gandhi is organizationally running the party, why is it that everyone is convinced that Sonia Gandhi stepped right back and takes all the decisions herself? Why is it that people now believe, and Sonia has more or less said so, that she's back in harness and back in control? She's sidestepped her son because she also has been convinced, or she has heard from people, he ain't up to the job.
No, I don't think so at all. She's not convinced of that. Neither am I convinced of that.
Let me put to you a paradox that faces the Congress party. Many say it constitutes perhaps the most serious problem you face. Rahul Gandhi is destined to be your future leader. He's already your vice president, and yet he doesn't like to lead from the front. More importantly, he doesn't even want to face up to the challenge of the BJP on the floor of the House. He's ducked it. That's the problem you face. Your leader ain't up to the fight.
That's not the problem we face. That's the problem you are facing by repeatedly asking why isn't it so. When I said 4 months ago, you had Rajnath Singh as the president of the party, not vice president, and you had a leader of the opposition. Why was it so? And that's been historically so. That it's not necessarily that the president or the vice president of a party becomes the leader of the opposition. It's never been so.
The truth of the matter is that even when Sonia Gandhi was in fact the president of the party, which she still is, she also was the leader of the party in Parliament.
You see, she still is.
But not in the Lok Sabha.
She is the leader of the Congress Parliamentary Party.
Sonia Gandhi was the leader of the party in the Lok Sabha in earlier years.
No.
Yes, she was. The deputy leader were people like Madhav Rao Sindhya and Sharad Pawar. Sonia Gandhi was the leader. Rahul Gandhi's ducked the job his mother accepted.
He's
That's
not
the
ducked any job. I've said that repeatedly, that for years and for the last 3 decades, the leader of the opposition is not necessarily the vice president or the president of the party.
Let me put it like this. How can Congress function effectively as an opposition party if A, your heir apparent won't lead, B, if he's either absent or invisible, and C, if he prefers to be silent or worse still, has nothing to say? That is the problem that you face.
Let's see, Parliament starts on Monday. I think you are preempting this, that he's not going to do this, he's not going to do that. I think that's absolutely wrong. Parliament is strategy. It's just not standing up and shouting. Parliament is strategy. How will you? Parliament is studying.
You're so lucky Parliament isn't just standing up and shouting. Rahul Gandhi never stands up and he doesn't shout.
Yeah, but that's good.
He's silent. He whispers.
No
one knows what he has to say. People don't even know what he has to think. That's the problem.
No, that's not correct at all. Let's see. Parliament is starting and we will deal with this.
Let me sum up this part of the interview by putting this to you. Do you believe that these sort of debates and discussions about Rahul Gandhi, and they're happening on television and they're happening in the papers every day, somehow enhance the country's understanding of Rahul Gandhi? Or are they underlining and emphasizing the fact He's a loser and a failure in politics.
No, I don't think so. Neither is he a loser, neither is he a failure. And I don't think these debates is to add masala to discussions and add masala to electronic media.
Do you know what
There's no substance in it.
Do you know what the Economic Times did this week? They compared Rahul Gandhi to the cartoon character Fido Dido. Do you know social media? They call him Pappu. Now, I'm going to put this to you. No one elects Fido Dido or Pappu as the Prime Minister of India.
We know today that how opposition parties are driving social media. It's all over the news. You know it, I know it. That how political parties are using, including the
You
BJP.
were doing this when you were in power 2 months ago.
Doing what?
Pappu was the name for Rahul Gandhi when you were in power 2 months ago. It's been the name on social media for the last 3 years. You can't blame it on the opposition parties.
No, but that you're talking about social media, that social media is saying this. I said it's the BJP which is saying that.
All right, let's leave Rahul Gandhi aside. Let's come now to the comment that A.K. Antony made about Congress secularism. He says, many people have begun to lose faith in Congress secularism. Their faith has been eroded because they perceive Congress secularism as slanting towards the minorities. And once again, a lot of people turn around and say he's spoken the truth. Do you, Kamal Nath, agree with him?
Well, I think that if Congress talks about secularism, it's already known. People believe it. The minorities believe it, that the Congress stands for secularism. Now, if we are what I think Antony was trying to say was that secularism cannot be Congress's only slogan. People have now, Congress need not sell secularism, because Congress stands for secularism.
Actually, Antony was saying something a lot different to what you claim. He wasn't saying secularism can't be the only slogan. He was saying Congress's interpretation and practice of secularism has looked to people as if it's slanted towards the minorities. In other words, it's not secularism, it's minorityism.
No, I think that if that becomes the perception, then Congress must correct itself.
You agree?
I agree. If, please understand.
Well, he says it is the perception.
Let me say what I have to say. That if the Congress version of secularism is perceived to believe a slant towards Muslims or any kind of minorities, then I think the Congress needs to portray it correctly. Congress needs to portray, Congress stands for a pluralistic society. Now, when we talk of a pluralistic society, we talk of secularism. It doesn't mean slanting this way or that way. In fact, it means slanting no way.
You're making a very important point, and I'm going to underline it. Even though you began by saying if, many people do believe that the perception of Congress secularism is in fact that it slants to minorities, and you're saying that perception needs to be corrected.
If it is so.
Now, by the way,
there are some people who believe it, that if Congress secularism stands for slanting towards minorities, well, the Congress needs to stand up and say that if we are not slanting, this has been Congress's recognition is of standing for a pluralistic society. Congress's recognition is standing for secularism. And I think, let me complete this, it was very important. I think the people in this country now believe that, and they know that Congress stands for this. Congress must be careful of not trying to rub it in all the time.
I'm going to actually add something there. This is not just a perception problem that can be corrected by Congress standing up and saying it's not true, we don't slant towards the minorities, we're genuinely secular. It's a problem that's actually grounded in some of the things your party has said and some of the things it's done. Do you remember Manmohan Singh as Prime Minister in 2006 saying the minorities and the Muslims in particular must have the first call on resources? People said that is minorityism. Do you remember Rajshekhar Reddy creating reservations for the Muslims? It's now stuck in the courts. It's probably going to be struck down. 3 weeks ago, Prithviraj Chauhan, facing elections in Maharashtra in 3 months' time, announced reservations for the Muslims. And people said, this is what they call minorityism.
Because there is an inherent injustice. How many secretaries to the government of India are Muslims? How many joint secretaries, additional secretaries are Muslims? These facts are known. Today, if the minorities represent a certain percentage in this country, say Muslims represent 15 or 16% of the country, are they anywhere near even 2%?
Is reservations the answer to tackling that problem? Surely what you need to do is to consciously promote good Muslims.
I think that it is one of the problems, one of the ways of doing it.
So is Kamal Nath saying to me that you're in favor of reservations for Muslims?
Yes.
You are?
Because of the gross facts which are there.
Then how do you tackle...
I think it's a very simple answer. Today, as I asked, how many in every job, How many Muslims are there in our universities? How many Muslims are there in the Doon school? Are there 15%? Are there 10%? Are there 2%? A school from which you and I come?
Are you saying across the board? Are you saying across the board we need reservations to tackle this problem of representation?
It's happening in jobs. It's one of the ways to prompt it. Is to see that Muslims get an equitable place in society.
Can I put you then the paradox of what you're saying? On the one hand, you're totally in favor of reservations to tackle the fact that Muslim representation across the board is very low. And on the other hand, you're saying, if there is a perception
it's not
problem,
my opinion.
On the other hand, you're saying if there's a perception problem about corporate secularism, it needs to be tackled. You're not tackling it, you're probably making it worse.
No, I say that it's staring you in the face. If Muslims are 15 or 16% of this country, tell me where. Tell me where. Please answer. No, let me finish. Tell me where are they even 5%?
Tell me this. What you're saying is diametrically the opposite of what A.K. Antony said. No. A.K. Antony was making it crystal clear that the Congress perception of secularism is that it slants in favor of the minorities. Now you're saying something very different. You began by half agreeing with him, but you moved the other way.
I'm neither half agreeing with him, I'm neither fully agreeing with him. I'm saying what I'm saying, that if the perception is that the Congress is slanting towards any particular community, it is wrong. The Congress does not stand for slanting towards any community.
And side by side with that position, you also believe there must be reservations for Muslims.
Because that is what equity is all about. If they, it's simple that if it's stuck on your face, it's written on the walls.
You don't think that one position will make the other perception worse?
No, it will not. Because the very fact that they are not getting in no area are they represented by the numbers. Well, then obviously something needs to be done.
All right. Mr. Kamal Nath, on Thursday, Mallikarjun Kharge and Jyotiraditya Scindia met the Speaker to demand that Congress be made the official leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha. Now, given that your party has just 44 seats, 10 less than 1/10 of the size of the Lok Sabha, on what grounds are you making this demand?
The Parliament must have, Lok Sabha must have a leader of the opposition, and the point is this.
The Lok Sabha frequently has not had a leader of the opposition.
Yes, but there is no law which says that if you don't have 10%, you cannot be leader of the opposition. There is no law.
Forgive me. There is a clear direction laid down by Speaker Mavlankar in 1953, Direction 121C.
There is a direction. These are things which are changed on a weekly basis.
No, just a moment.
These things are changed on a weekly basis. And a simple point is this. Why is the government or the BJP afraid of a leader of the opposition?
Oh, it's not a question.
Giving a status.
I don't know whether the government is afraid or not. That's your imputation. That's not one that I can accept. It may be the case, but I don't know. But let me put this
Why shouldn't the government and the BJP stand up and say, yes, we want a leader of the opposition?
I'll give you one reason why, in fact, it might be difficult for the government, the BJP, and more importantly, the Speaker, because it's the Speaker's decision or a government decision, and that's this. Parliament, as you know, as a former Parliamentary Affairs Minister better than me, runs on precedents. And the precedent is that there's only been an official leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha when the single largest opposition party has had more than 1/10 of the seats. When it hasn't, and that was the case right up to 1969 and right through the 1980s, there was no official leader. How can that precedent be overturned for your case?
Let's face it, the world at that time, India at that time, Parliament at that time was very different. I've seen Parliament change from 1980. And now when committees are set up which must include the leader of the opposition, I don't see why we should not have one.
That's a technical reason you're now citing.
That's not a technical reason. Times have changed.
Let me answer.
There was never 10 years ago a single committee.
Let me answer that for you like this. First of all, each of the committees or each of the laws that require representation by the leader of the opposition to choose the CVC, the CIC, the Lokpal or the NHRC also have a clause which say that if one or other person is not available, you can carry on without them.
Yeah.
So you can.
No, but why
it's not an obstacle.
Why should? I'm saying, why is anyone afraid? Why is anyone hesitant to have a leader of the opposition?
Well, let me tell you this. You didn't have a leader of the opposition in the 80s when Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi were in power. This concern didn't occur to Rajiv Gandhi and Indira Gandhi.
Let's talk in today's context. Let's talk in terms of the law. There is no law which says you need 10% of the seats. There's no law which says so. These are the rulings of the Speaker. And
which have been observed for 60 years.
I have been Parliamentary Affairs Minister. The rulings of the Speaker are modified, are corrected, are overturned on a monthly basis in Lok Sabha.
Okay, as I hear you, I get the feeling that you're not claiming this right in terms of the rules of Parliament. You're not claiming it in terms of any
rules of Parliament.
You're not claiming it even
because there is a very clear clause. It says that in terms of emoluments, where you're going to have 10%. Forget the emoluments. We should have a leader of the opposition. They should say, okay, we won't give you the emoluments, but we will have a leader of the opposition.
It seems to me that you're making the claim not on technical or legislative grounds. You're making the claim on moral grounds.
No,
you're saying that India's democracy and its sanctity requires it.
That is one, but the more important part is that there is no rule which says you cannot be leader of the opposition.
Well, you know, this is a matter of interpretation.
And it is not.
This is a matter of interpretation. Subhash Kashyap, perhaps one of the greatest Secretary Generals of the Lok Sabha, has gone on record repeatedly to say that, in fact, the 1998 law on the Leaders and Whips of Parties and Groups Facilities Act makes it clear that a party is only a party if it has more than 55 seats.
That is in terms of facilities.
Yes, but if you
That's in terms of facilities.
But
please,
hang on a moment.
Please read the full thing.
I do. But if you read that back into the 1977 Leader of Opposition Parliament Act, Subhash Kashyap's interpretation is that this 55-seat requirement applies in the 77 rule as well.
It's not necessary that Subhash Kashyap's interpretation is the right interpretation. You just popped up one Subhash Kashyap and saying now that's become the law of the land. That is not correct at all.
Let me put it like this. Will the Congress party accept that the final interpretation will be that of the Speaker, Sumitra Mahajan?
Well, we know the speakers from the BJP, and it's we all know how it functions. Let's be very clear on it. The Speaker is supposed to be neutral, but the Speaker is from a political party appointed by a political party.
Isn't that always the case?
That's always the case. I'm saying we all know that.
Are you saying speakers aren't neutral?
No, on parliamentary proceedings they are neutral, but when it means a contentious situation like this as it's become, I don't see why it should have been a contentious situation at all.
You're saying two things. You're saying Sumitra Mahajan's decision, whenever it comes on the LOP, will in fact have been influenced by the BJP
government. Would have been
flavored
by the BJP.
Flavored by the BJP.
Absolutely.
In other words,
absolutely.
She will be acting as Narendra Modi's representative and voice on this issue.
I'm saying flavored. She's not acting on the Speaker, with all respect to the chair. Doesn't mean is acting at the behest of somebody, but there is a flavor always.
One other question. Saturday's Times of India says that in fact if the Congress party is not granted the official LOP status, you will go to court.
I do not know. I'm not been a party to these decisions or these discussions.
Do you, as one of the most senior parliamentarians in your party, you're a 9-time MP, you were pro tem speaker when this parliament began, do you, with your enormous parliamentary experience, believe that it would be right for Congress to go to court if you disagree?
Certainly. We must fight for what is there today in the context of politics, in the context of parliament today. And trying to bring in the 50s and 60s and say in the 50s we never had this, in the 60s we never had this. In the 50s and 60s we never had so many things.
So you're saying to me...
In the 50s we didn't even have a camera in parliament.
So you're saying to me that going to court could be, if you do that, the right thing?
It should be one of our options.
It should be one of your options.
It should be one of our options.
One other quick question before I end. If Congress doesn't get the official leader of opposition status, will you be an obstructive opposition in Parliament as a way of ventilating your anger?
I don't think so. I've said so before that we should be a constructive opposition, a very strong constructive opposition.
Even if you don't get the official LOP status?
I don't think these two things are connected. It's not that we are going to retaliate by being obstructive. That is not what the Congress stands for.
And this is a position and a stand that Sonia Gandhi backs and supports?
Absolutely.
Rahul Gandhi as well?
Mrs. Sonia Gandhi will not want the Congress to retaliate by being obstructive on the floor if the Congress does not get the leader of the opposition, which is unfairly so. But so be it. We'll fight it out in other forums.
Kamal Nath, a pleasure talking to you.